If your health or life coach is wondering how much time you should be spending on marketing versus how much time you should be spending actually coaching clients, then today's episode of the show is for you. We're going to answer that question and help you reduce the overwhelm and feel more focused in your coaching business. Let's dive in. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura. I help heart-centered and highly sensitive health and life coaches get more clients, grow their income, and live the best lives while they do it. And today on the show, we're talking all about how much time should you be spending on activities like actually coaching clients versus how much time you should be spending on your marketing activities. This is especially for you if you feel a bit overwhelmed about where you should be focusing your time. I wanted to start off by talking a bit about time in versus time on your business and what that means, because really the answer to this is a little bit wider than just marketing, because marketing, yes, is obviously very important. We're going to dig into that, but there's all sorts of other things that you need to do to run a coaching business other than just coach. And I feel like a lot of coaches who initially do their coach training and they're very passionate about the actual action of coaching people get a bit of a shock when they realise how much they need to do as a business owner in order to be able to do the work that they actually really love at the start, which is the coaching. So part of this comes down to that, how much time do you need to be working in your business versus on your business? And like I said, this is wider than just your marketing. So basically time in your business is the time when you are in the workings of your business, you're kind of doing the things, you're coaching the clients. To be fair, this does include things like marketing, admin, invoicing, like all of that kind of stuff, versus the time on your business, which is like the growth stuff. And this is where a lot of people get to like a bit of a point where they get stuck because they are so busy in the workings, the day-to-day workings of the business, they're not able to take that time out and actually look at it like a business owner, like a CEO. I know that kind of sounds like a bit like, I don't think many of us in the wholehearted business kind of wholeheartedly Laura kind of space, because we're all about cozy coaching businesses, will resonate with the CEO kind of term. However, it is important because we do sometimes have to take that step back and actually look at our businesses from a more strategic viewpoint. And that is the difference between working in and working on. When you can work on your business from that outside perspective and look at it like a CEO and make decisions, that's where the growth is going to happen. Last week on the show, we talked all about getting out of the feast and famine cycle. And actually, maybe I should have added this point in there, because having that time to be able to be strategic and actually take the bigger kind of picture viewpoint of your business is really important. So if you are spending too much time actually in the workings of it, it's going to get hard. So I wanted to mention that before we dive into more specifically the coaching versus the actual marketing piece, but it is really helpful to think about those two parts of your business. And there's lots of different ways you can encourage yourself to have time to work on and not just in, but it is difficult, especially when actually finance is a bit of an issue there. So just something to be aware of. Now, ultimately, the answer to this question, how much time you should be spending on coaching versus marketing, really kind of comes down to how much marketing do you need to do to attract the clients that you need to attract. Because what you'll often find is that there's like a balance between marketing and attracting the clients. Again, just to reference last week's show, I'll make sure I drop the link in the description for anyone who's missed it. But what we talked about last week was the feast and famine cycle in terms of income and being able to create more consistent income. And what often happens is that we have to be doing the marketing to get the coaching clients in. And what happens with a lot of coaches is they kind of do the marketing, they get some clients in, they kind of slack off on the marketing, and they're like, oh shit, I've got no clients. Do the marketing, get some clients in. Oh shit, and it's that, and that's the cycle when it comes to the marketing. So we need to recognize that there's going to need to be a balance between the marketing and the client work that you do. And generally speaking, you will probably be doing more of the marketing and like the businessy work than the actual coaching. And again, I say that because a lot of people who go through the coaching training don't recognize that at the start. I mean, you wouldn't if you're not aware of it, and that's not your fault. It's just something that you're not aware of. So the actual business of the business can take up quite a bit of time. But ultimately, how much time you spend on the coaching versus the marketing is going to be led by how much marketing you need to do to actually get the clients in. And that's going to be slightly different depending on your niche, your ideal client, your own preferences when it comes to marketing, what feels aligned for you, whether or not you want to do social media or not, whether you have a budget for ads, all of that kind of stuff is going to come into that equation. So bear that in mind, what is the balance that you need to have, and be wary that it's very easy to kind of like do lots of marketing, then fall off, get clients, then having to do that, and that's just really stressful and not very helpful at all. So be aware that there's that balance in there as well. Another thing to recognize as part of this conversation is that you will probably not be able to work with as many clients as you think you're going to be able to work with. What tends to happen with my clients and the people that I chat with who have come through their coaching qualification is that they tend to think that they can work with way more clients than they realistically can do in the time that they've got available. Often we think we can have 20 clients on a go, or 10 clients at once, or whatever your number is. But generally speaking, if you have a number of how many clients you think you can work with at any one time, I would reduce that a little bit down, because it's likely that you're probably not going to have the time to work with them, or that marketing versus bringing the clients in balance is going to be off. So just bear in mind that you're probably not going to be able to work with as many people as you think. I mean, obviously there's exceptions to that rule, but generally speaking, I think most people overestimate how much time they would have to work with clients versus all of the other business stuff that they need to do to actually be able to hold space and attract those clients in. So bear that in mind as well. When it comes to your marketing, obviously, again, how much time you spend on your marketing versus how much time you spend on your coaching, you want to be looking at being the most effective in the time that you spend on your marketing as you can. You want to get the most bang for your buck. Personally, what works for me in my business is the searchable show, this very show that you are listening to or watching right now. Again, I teach this whole strategy in the searchable show method. I will put a link in the description to the course where I teach this. But essentially, having some kind of get the most bang for your buck marketing system is going to make the biggest difference, because if you don't want to be spending loads of time marketing, like again, most of you guys have trained as coaches because you want to coach people. You don't want to be sat on bloody Instagram doing reels. You don't want to be doing like networking events necessarily. You want to be coaching people. And again, unfortunately, part of running a coaching business is also being a business owner, unless you are, doing associate work or you work as a coach in another organisation or whatever. So when it comes to the marketing piece, if you don't want to be doing this much marketing, if you don't necessarily enjoy the marketing piece, and not everyone does, I love this. I could do these videos every day, every week. I really love it, but not everyone is going to love it. So you want to think about your marketing. What is going to get me the most bang for my buck? And sometimes there's a bit of experimentation needed to find out what that is, because the most effective marketing strategy for your business, for you, what's aligned for you, what is going to attract your ideal clients, it's going to be very specific, and there's a bit of trial and error sometimes as well. So bear that in mind too, is that you need to find a foundational marketing system that you can show up for consistently, that is going to be the baseline of everything, that is sustainable and doable, that is going to attract clients. And like I say, for me, it's a searchable show, but for you, it could be something different. But think about what that needs to look like in your business, because again, the more that you do something consistently, the easier and quicker it gets. Like I can get these shows, recorded, like prepped, recorded and done in quite a short space of time. And that makes a big difference, because it then means that I've got more capacity to work on my business and not just in it, but also more capacity to take on more clients. And I do actually work with quite a high number of clients. But the reason that I can do that and still only work 20 to 25 hours a week is because I've got a foundational marketing strategy that gets results. So this all kind of swirls together to answer that question in terms of how much time you need to spend on each one. There are other marketing methods that can also be quick and can be effective. And again, like I say, I talk about the searchable show, but there are other things. So for example, if you really don't want to be spending a lot of time on marketing, then you might want to look at paid ads as an option, because they can be set up as long as you set them up correctly, as long as they actually work and you test them. Potentially you can set up paid ads that will work. And again, there's lots of if, buts and maybes with this, and to do with your niche and all that kind of stuff. But you can set up ads that will run more automatically in the background. It's not to say that you won't have to do some work on them, but that will be something that could be helpful if you really don't want to be doing as much marketing and really want to be doing more coaching. So bear that one in mind as well. And then finally, another part of this conversation is the tasks and the way that you manage your time, because again, how much time you spend on each one is kind of dependent on how productive you are, how you manage your time. something that I find really helpful is looking at things in terms of what's an ongoing task and what's a project-based task. And this can be just a helpful thing in your head when you're thinking about, for example, I want to be doing more work coaching people and less work marketing, or I need to have a more sustainable balance between the two. What out of your marketing, for example, is a project and has a start and an end. So, for example, setting up and running ads, it might be a bit of a project because you kind of like work on creating and setting up the ads and then they kind of just go, but then checking in on your ads is like an ongoing task and that might not take as much time. So thinking about the different tasks that you have in your business in terms of project-based and ongoing can help you look at the way that you're utilising your time on a week-by-week basis and make better decisions about where you invest in that time so that you get the better results for the time that you're spending on things as well. So to summarise all of that and answer the question, how much time do you need to be spending on marketing versus how much time you spend on coaching? The answer is really depends on you and your business. However, you probably will be spending more time on marketing than you maybe have envisaged if you are a new coach, because you're going to have to do that marketing initially until you actually get a good flow of clients. You might be spending all of your time on marketing, or very, very much of your time on marketing than actual coaching. And that can be, overwhelming at the start. It doesn't mean that your business is always going to look like that. So again, there's always this transitory period. But ultimately what you want to do is find that balance between, this is the time that I need to put into marketing and this is the kind of results I get in terms of client attraction. So you kind of start to see the balance of what that looks like. And you can start to kind of, work it out from there if marketing is something that you don't particularly enjoy that much. But I would also encourage you to find a version of marketing that feels good, because I do think there's a version of marketing in your business and doing sales. For most people, for everyone will find something that they don't hate, basically. So finding something that you enjoy means that when you are spending that time marketing, it's something that at least is good fun and that you find enjoyable, so that kind of work of generating the actual clients so that you can do the coaching work that you love isn't as onerous as it might otherwise be. So I hope that's really been helpful. Like I said, there's no definitive answer. I wish I could just say, yes, you need to spend this much time on coaching, this much time on marketing, but it really is, it's probably going to shift and change. I think what you've got to be really aware of is just not getting into that pattern where you're just doing loads of marketing, then you're doing lots of client delivery, then you're kind of freaking out because you haven't got any new clients because you haven't marketed. That's the main thing to be aware of, that pattern, because that's not sustainable and that's going to feel awful. So trying to find something that's sustainable that you can kind of continue along with it. It's not to say you're going to have ups and downs. You might do launches, you might have things like that going on as well. But it's about finding a sustainable balance for you that isn't going to overwhelm you and that is going to put the focus on the kind of stuff that you enjoy as well. So I really hope that's been helpful. As always, guys, do let me know if you're watching on YouTube. Please let me know in the comments if you are going to try any of the tips that I've talked about. What does this look like for you? Do you enjoy marketing? What's your favourite kind of marketing? What does this look like for you? Let me know. If you are listening on the podcast, please pop me a DM on Instagram. I'm at wholeheartedlylaura. You can DM me over there. Love to know what you think of this. Love to know if you feel like you spend too much time marketing and not enough time marketing. Just give me a shout and I'll be back next week, guys. Take care. Bye.